Hello, this is my ranking of Cosmere novels, and I will just jump right into it. So, before we begin, these are all the things that I'm taking into account or not taking into account. This is just my personal opinion because I think my list is pretty controversial if it were to, I don't know, compared to a bunch of other fans. I think I have a pretty controversial taste. So, starting off with The Way of Kings, which is book one of the Stormlight Archive, which Brandon considers as his magnum opus. I just really love this book. I think this was the fifth book of his that I read. It was the first one that was recommended to me by a good friend, and I'm so glad that I did end up reading it. And I've read it twice now, and I need to just reread it at least a couple times every year because it's so massive. I will forget so much of it unless I keep reading it over and over and over. And there's nothing about this book that I don't like. It's basically a prologue to this even bigger world building and really incredible world that he's made on Roshar. And it really excels at doing that and setting up all this massive world building, but not doing it in a way where that's all that there is. It's a really fun book in and of itself anyway. And then Words of Radiance comes in just behind it. For a while there, I had Words of Radiance above The Way of Kings, but there's just, I don't know, it just slightly comes in below it, but they are both like really high books. I love these two books so much. And the Leatherbound campaign for Words of Radiance happened this year, and I'm still waiting to get mine in the mail, and I'm super excited about that one. But yeah, this one is really, really great also. So then, Tress of the Emerald Sea, I really, really love this book. I was really looking forward to reading this book, and I'm so glad that I did. Yeah, I wish I could read it again for the first time because it was so good. I don't know. The ending is probably my least favorite part. For the most part, it's really good and a solid ending. But then, I don't know. I don't want to spoil stuff either, but there are things about the ending that are just a little bit disappointing. But since the rest of the book is so strong, I don't know. I don't really care as much as I would if the rest of the book was sort of lackluster. So then Oathbringer comes in fourth. This is like totally Dalinar's book. Dalinar has all these amazing flashbacks, and I just did a reread of this one because at first it was like, yeah, I don't really care. Like, I understand why we need all these flashbacks, but this next time I was like, wow, these are really good and like super solid, and he just has become a more fleshed out character since my reread, and he really wants to be my favorite character. And then Misbourne, The Well of Ascension. This was the second book in the first era, and this is probably one of the most controversial placings because this book is a part two, and it really feels like a part two, but I love it regardless. And yeah, so like I said in the description, I really want a movie or TV show of this book. This book especially feels like a movie, and I can envision every single scene, and that just really excites me for movie potential. And that's probably why I like it so much, because I can envision it so well. And then Rhythm of War comes in, I think about 5 or 6. This book, I don't know, it was kind of a bit of a struggle just because there are parts that I really am not a fan of. It is some people's favorite books, and it's really just a matter of taste because it is also a really strong book. Another thing to consider with these books is that they are all so good that even if Rhythm of War is the least favorite book, they're still gonna be like tiers and tiers above most fantasy books. And then Misbourne, the Hero of Ages. This is the third book of the first era. This has the best ending that you could ever do. And I really love the cover art for this one especially. And just the threat and the way that it is scaled up over all three books is really, really cool, and I really appreciate that. And, oh, there's one character interaction that these two characters never got to reunite, and that part is just so devastating to me, and I really wish that had happened, because there was no reason for it not to happen, so that is the most disappointing part of this book. And then Misbourne, the Final Empire is the first book of Era 1. This is probably his most popular book ever. I do really enjoy this book, but like I said, it's only beaten by other books because I love the other ones more. But the Cosmere probably couldn't exist without this book, so I'm really appreciative of this book. And then Warbreaker was the first book that I ever read of his. It was really cool, and there were some parts that I was like, that were so tense that I was like, could not breathe. It was really cool. Nightblood is the best character. I don't want to spoil anything with Nightblood, but yeah, want more of him. And I really like the world and the magic system because it really stretches its users in an interesting way, because on its own it doesn't seem very powerful. And for the future of the Cosmere, I am really intrigued to see the role that this magic system particularly plays in like the greater scheme of things. And then there's Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. And this one was kind of disappointing. I had really high hopes. I was hoping that it would be right up there with Tress, because I read Tress first. And this one is also narrated by Hoyd. And Hoyd is a character that appears in every single Cosmere book and is incredibly important. And he has a really fun character voice. At least I think so. I know some people really don't like his narration or his prose and find him really annoying and irritating. I love it. And I feel like he's not as... His narrative voice is not as obvious in this book as it is in Tress, and it's rather disappointing to me. However, there are still really fun parts. I really like the characters also, and I like that some of the character... I wouldn't say issues, but the character struggles and problems are much, much more relatable to like everyday modern life, which was really refreshing to see for a change. I wouldn't want it in many of my books. I like the more dramatic character problems, but it was really cool to see like Painter's issues especially. I thought that those were really cool. But then, well, like I said, I found the plot and its payoff to be underwhelming. It was, I don't know, it was almost a Deus Ex Machina to me, but I think I'm one of the only people that has that opinion. It just felt like it used its Cosmere connections and like all of the glue that kind of holds the entire scope of the whole series together, and it feels like it used too much stuff like that, so you had to be Cosmere aware to really appreciate the ending of this book, and I generally don't care for that, and I just didn't really care for it as much as I wished I did. So, Elantris was Brandon's first published book, and this one I mostly just read so that I could say that I've read all of the Cosmere books. This one was a drag for me. That might have been because I listened to it as an audiobook and the narrator was not great. Maybe it would get better on reread. There's going to be a sequel of this book coming out pretty soon, and it'll be so fascinating to see the quality uptick from around 20 years or more in Brandon's writing experience to see the sequel. And I really like the magic system. And I really like the world because we've had some other shorter works that have been set on this world, and it really has a lot of potential going forward in the Cosmere that I really, really want to see. And then the Sunlet Man comes in last, unfortunately. So I read this one. This was the latest book that I read, and I kind of knew that it was usually not as highly regarded as a lot of Brandon's work. So it was really tense, and that can be fun, but I like to have a chance to breathe, and I didn't really feel like I got that at all. And then this book uses a lot of like other Cosmere stuff, so you have to be Cosmere aware in a way to really appreciate this book in full. So it's probably not the best place to start. And I don't know. I don't really care for any of the characters except for kind of Nomad and then a couple of like his relationships with the people he ends up helping in this book. The world is really interesting. I really appreciated that. There were some other things that they tie into the Cosmere, but they felt very contrived and they just like appeared and happened. And I don't know. I don't really like that part of it either. And I really did not like the villain either. He was pretty bland. He was a threat, but he was stupid, and he just felt like a lot of other just villains that are just bad for the sake of being bad almost, which was kind of disappointing. But overall, this book did make me really excited for Stormlight 5 because this book directly ties into the Stormlight Archive in a way that is very spoilerish. So at least it made me excited for that, but I probably won't be reading it again. Alright, so anyway, that is it, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.